Greetings, I'm Professor Hobo, and welcome to another HOBOTECH product review. DJI is a brand synonymous with the best camera drones on the market, and like many other tech brands now, has decided to bust into the portable power market with the introduction of their new DJI Power 1000 and Power 500 series power stations. And I got hands-on with the Power 1000 to answer one simple question, and that is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
While DJI did send both the Power 1000 and Power 500, we're going to focus today on their larger offering, the Power 1000. Inside the Power 1000 is, you guessed it, a 1024 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery rated at 4,000 cycles, or approximately 10 years of daily use. As for size and weight, it's approximately 18 by 9 by 9 inches and weighs 29 pounds as verified by my own scale. The display is a color LCD that offers the basic information you need, such as battery stated charge percentage, watts in and out, time to charge and discharge. Inside this tiny little box packs a massive 2200 watt pure sine inverter with a pair of 20 amp AC outlets. And if you press the inverter button one time, it goes into eco mode, where it will shut off after 30 minutes of no load. In eco mode, the light will pump green on and off. Now, if you actually hold the inverter button down for 2 seconds, the lights will come on full power and stay on full power. This is standard mode, and it will actually completely drain the battery in this mode, regardless of the load on the AC outlets. As for ways to charge, this is where things get a little tricky, because the base product, as you see it here, doesn't have any DC charging ability out of the box. I'm going to explain this here in a moment. It does come with an AC power cord and can charge at either 1200 or 600 watts depending on the setting of the selection switch, which you see right here in front underneath the charging outlet. At 1200 watts, it'll top up the 1000 in about 70 minutes. Now, what about solar? Well, it can charge with up to 800 watts of solar, assuming you purchase it with the solar charging kit, as the DJI does not have built-in solar controller. That's right, it's separate. Each of these MPPT solar controller boxes can take up to 3 solar panels each and max out at 400 watts. The power station supports a pair of them through these what they call SDC ports. So with a maximum of 800 watts of solar, the DJI 1000 can charge in about an hour and a half. It can also charge from 12 or 24 volt vehicle or external batteries via the non-included car charging cord. Now, this method will top up the power station in about 12 hours. As for 12 volt output types, you guessed it, it's not built in either, but requires a separate cable adapter to 12 volt output socket. Fortunately, it is regulated at 13.6 volts and supports up to 10 amps, good for 136 watts. The 1000 does offer a pair of USB-C version 3.1 power delivery outputs, good for 140 watts each. Yes, this is the first power station on this channel with 140 watt USB outputs, and I had to go buy some special new equipment to test these out. It also does offer a pair of USB-A quick charge outputs, good for 24 watts each. So you might be asking yourself, what the heck is up with all these specialized cables? Well, DJI offers a pair of what's called SDC ports, and there's 2 of them built into the 1000. It's a proprietary I/O port that allows DC input from 32 to 58 volts up to 400 watts, while simultaneously offering DC output from 9 to 27 volts up to 240 watts. Now, the main reason for these SDC ports to exist is that they support variable voltage charging most DJI drone batteries directly and at super fast speeds, otherwise impossible. Now, the downside is, yes, you do need an adapter cable to convert this input-output into something usable for solar in and 12 volt coming out. The upside is that if you do own a DJI Air 3, Mavic 3, Inspire 3, or Matrix 30 drone, you can get an adapter cable that will super fast charge your drone directly from these SDC ports. Other models are not yet supported, but that may change in the future. Now, what about app support? DJI does not yet offer an app, but you can do a firmware update through the USB-C port, and I'll show you how that works in a bit. As for warranty, DJI does offer a standard 3-year product warranty that can be extended to 5 years for free if you register your product on the DJI website. And of course, I took the 1000 here into my secret laboratory where I performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it, including, yes, of course, a double-fisted battery capacity test. As for the results of the DC battery capacity test, in which I discharged the power station using the 12-volt cable, it scored 820 watt hours out of 1024 for 80%. As for the AC battery capacity test, it scored a much lower 720 watt hours out of 1024 for a below average 70% result. Now, as for the phantom load and parasitic drain test, where we test the power consumption at idle with no loads, which means I turn on the DC, plug the cable in, let it sit and do nothing, turn on the inverter, let it sit and do nothing. The DC side consumption, it used 195 watt hours over 12 hours, or extrapolate that out to 390 watt hours over 24 hours. As for the AC side consumption, it used a whopping 313 watt hours over 12 hours, or about 626 watt hours over 24 hours. So if you left this inverter on with nothing plugged in, it would totally kill the battery in about 1.5 days. It's obvious that the large 2200 watt inverter in this just gobbles power at standby, making it less efficient. It also doesn't help that the DC side is now making 2 DC to DC conversions to be able to output 12 volt regulated, and that also hurts efficiency. Now, I'm always asked what kind of appliances can you run on these kind of products and for how long, so I'm going to go ahead and put a chart up here on the screen, which you can pause to see approximately how long common appliances will run on this unit, factoring in what we just figured out. Pure sine wave check under load. We're rocking 122 volts at 60 hertz, pure sine wave. So on this sheet of paper they call a user manual, it says 1800 watt AC output with a 2200 watt continuous max. So does that mean it's an 1800 watt inverter, or is it a 2200 watt inverter? Because it says continuous max at 2200 watts. Let's find out. Okay, right there are the number of watts going out. So right now it's at 2100. Let's go ahead and push it up to 2200. 2200, 2400, 2600, 2700 watts, 2800, and it shuts down. So it looks like the limit's 2800 watts. This next test is the sustained cooling or heat soak test, where we go ahead and run this thing for 5 minutes at its maximum capacity and find out, does it do anything strange? Does it start smelling funny, or have some bad BO, or start smoking, or pounding the meth or something? We want to know, does it misbehave, or does it act fine? Does it act weird? All right, so we're about to find out. Is 2200 watts the actual limit, or is it 1800? We're gonna run it for 5 minutes and find out. I didn't think this was gonna be possible, but here we are, 5 minutes in at 2200 watts. This thing is insane. I can't believe that this tiny little box is outputting 2200. Look how fast the battery has run down. This is only the second test. We're down to half battery already. I'm gonna turn this thing off since we made it to 5 minutes. Try to save that power for the rest of my tests. Okay, let me show you a comparison of just how small this is. I know it actually looks really small on camera, it is. This is a competitor's 1000 watt power station. This thing outputs 2200 watts. Look at the size difference. They're almost the same size. If you knock these handles off the sides, it would pretty much be close to the same size. That's pretty unbelievable that this thing outputs 2200 watts and it's that small and that lightweight. Now, there's reasons why we're going to get into here in a moment. Now, there's something else that's pretty crazy about this power station. This thing's outputting 2200 watts, and it's not very loud at all. It's a small power station outputting a ton of power, and it's not that loud. Let's see how loud. 52 decibels from a meter away is not that bad at all. It's not super quiet, but it's certainly not loud. So you might be wondering, how fast does this thing charge from AC power or a generator? Let's plug this cord in that comes with it and find out. Now, the input for the AC power is on the front, and there is a switch below that allows you to switch between 600 watt slow charge and 1200 watt fast charge. So let's put it on 1200 watt. All right, we see a top out somewhere around 1160 watts. That's not too bad for 1200 watt maximum. Let's switch this over to 600. And it drops the charging down to 600 watts. So the switch works perfectly fine and allows you to switch between fast charging and slow charging. And it doesn't even require an app. That's something else to be aware of. This does not have an app. There is no way to access it and use a slider or tell it to slow charge or fast charge remotely. Everything is done on the power station. This doesn't have Wi-Fi, doesn't have Bluetooth. There's no wireless transmitter in this whatsoever. It's going to make a lot of you very happy that hate things like apps and Wi-Fi. So while the DJI 1000 does not charge from USB, its smaller sibling back here that was hiding the whole time, the DJI 500, actually does allow you to charge with two 100-watt USB inputs and outputs. So you simultaneously charge and discharge from these. And I know that might be a selling point with a lot of you. A lot of you love these smaller power stations that actually can charge from USB. So let's go ahead and hook up two 100-watt chargers to it and see what happens. There we go. I have two 100-watt power delivery chargers plugged into this thing, and it is charging at about 190 watts from these two USB cables. So yeah, this is actually pretty cool. It's not a very large power station whatsoever. It's the 500, and it does have a little inverter in it too. Now the inverter on this will do 1,000 watts maximum, so it's not as powerful as its bigger brother. The fact that you can charge it with 200 watts of USB is pretty awesome, I must say. This also has the SDC input output along with the switch that allows you to slow and fast charge with the AC input on the front. One of the things you need to be aware of is it seems like this doesn't have any kind of high-speed fans in it to cool it off. So if you pummel the crap out of it like I just did running into all those long 2200-watt tests, the thing's now a little bit warm. It's now forcing me to charge on slow mode, even though I have it on fast mode. I unplugged it, plugged it back in, turned it off, turned it on. Because what I want to do now is test how loud is it charging at 1200 watts. Well, it's pretty much sitting at 600-watt charging. Virtually silent. I can barely hear anything coming out of it. It probably won't even register more than 42 or 43 decibels on my meter. So I gotta wait for it to kick back up to 1200 watts to see how loud is this thing charging from the wall. We need to figure out how fast can this thing charge from solar. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you're gonna think I'm totally crazy, but this is what DJI decided to do. And that is, instead of having a built-in solar controller like every other power station, they decided to have an external solar controller. Yes, you have to actually purchase a separate box if you want to charge with solar, and it has 3 XT60 connections inside of it that allows you to put panels in parallel. So this does not support putting solar panels in series of any kind. The panels must be put in parallel, and with this box you can do up to 3 per box. Now they were supposed to send me 2 of these boxes because this has 2 SDC ports. What's SDC? SDC is DJI's proprietary input-output system. So this thing can put input or output up to 58 volts, I believe, but the MPPT is limited to 30 volts. So 12 to 30 volts can be the input for these solar panels. And of course, DJI has their own solar panels, which you can purchase along with the solar controller. So how this works is that you just plug it in to the SDC port, and then you plug your solar panels into this box. Now, each box can support up to 400 watts of solar. So this can charge at 800 watts of solar with 2 of these boxes. You're probably thinking, well, that's a pretty sloppy solution, isn't it? Well, actually, they came up with a solution to that, and that is what these screw holes are for on the side. And then they give you a bunch of hardware and a manual to tell you how to install this on the side of the power station. So you put one there, and apparently there's a bracket or something that supports a second one. Like I said, I don't know because they didn't send me the second one. So let's go ahead and install the solar controller and see what it looks like. All right, so this is awesome. This is 30 different languages, not a single picture or description on how to hook this up. So we're on our own, folks. Well, that was a frustrating experience. I ended up not using the brackets and the screws because a lot of the screws didn't fit the holes, and I'm sitting there going, what's this bracket even for? Because this thing mounts right to it. I'm guessing the bracket is if you have 2 solar controllers and it puts a mount over the exit fan, which seems like a really bad idea, but DJI apparently knows what they're doing. So yeah, I'm just going to forget about this mess. And that took so long that the power station cooled down. Let's go ahead and finally do a decibel check. Okay, 42 decibels. That's exactly the same result I did off camera for the low speed. So it doesn't matter if it's on 600 or 1200 watts, it's virtually silent at 42, 43 decibels. All right, I got the variable voltage charger hooked up, which acts like fake solar. I have it set to 13 volts like you might want to charge from your car, truck, or van, and we're charging at the expected 105 watts. So this is through the MPPT controller using the SDC port. So let's go ahead and turn it up to solar panel voltage, or 18 volts for like a typical 100 watt solar panel. So we are getting 162 watts of input. All right, let's bump this up to 24 volts. Like say you're going to charge from a 24 volt battery or vehicle. Okay, we're now inputting about 210 watts. So this thing says it supports 30 volts. Let's take it up to 30 volts and see what happens. Oh, it really supports only 30 volts, huh? As soon as I went over, it didn't like that at all. All right, there we are, 30 volts, 8.5 amps. We're maxing out at 250 watts. But you're like, Professor, you said that the MPPT controller would allow 400 watts. Yes, if you have multiple solar panels plugged in. A single solar panel, it seems like it's limited to about 10 amps maximum. So you're not going to be able to really pass 250 watts with a single solar panel. Now the solar panels that DJI provides, they're 100 watts each. You'd put 3 100 watt panels in and probably get around 250, 260 watts anyway out of 3 panels on one of their MPPT controllers. Of course, if you put your own solar panels on, you can expect a maximum of 250 watts if you only have one large panel plugged in. As long as the voltages are below 30 volts, because as soon as you pass 30 volts, 31 volts, it cuts you off. You can see it just went to 0. So there's no leeway whatsoever with the voltage. It has to be under 30 volts and above 12 volts for these SDC ports to do their job. So yeah, pretty limited on solar. The fact that it's an external controller, not so cool. But I think most people buying this, if they are going to solar charge it, they're going to solar charge it with 1 or 2 100 watt panels that it comes with and be done with it. I don't think most power users are going to buy this and want to hook a whole bunch of solar into it. That's just not what this thing is designed for. So you're probably asking the same thing that I was when I first saw this. What in the world is the point of these proprietary SDC ports? They're kind of focusing more towards supporting their own drones than doing anything else. That's why it has these proprietary outputs. Now, here's one thing I haven't even got to yet, and that is the fact that everything on this power station requires its own SDC adapter. So if you want to charge it with a 12 volt cigarette lighter plug or a 24 volt, say you have a 12 or 24 volt vehicle and you want to use the old cigarette lighter style plug, you have to get this adapter cable with this converter box that plugs into SDC and allows you to charge from 12 or 24 volts. Now the upside is this does have 2 ports, so you can get 2 of these and charge twice as fast. Now we saw at 12 volts it'll charge at 100 watts. So 2 of these and 2 cigarette lighter sockets in your vehicle, you could charge this at 200 watts and top it up in about 4 hours. That's not bad at all from 12 volts. Now, what if you want a 12 volt output? Because if you noticed, there's no 12 volt output socket built into this. That's because, again, everything goes through the SDC port. So here you go, a cigarette lighter style accessory socket, otherwise called a car port, plugs into the SDC, again, either one, so you can actually have 2 of these if you buy 2 of these cables. These are in and outputs, so you can, yes, plug in the 12 volt charger into your vehicle on one side and then use the cigarette lighter socket to power a fridge or something on the other side. So it is very versatile. But do be aware, each one of these cords is a separate purchase. Now, a lot of you are going to frown down upon that. It only comes with the AC power cable, nothing else. So if you want to solar charge it, you need the solar box. If you want a 12 volt, you need at least one of these. If you want to charge it from a car, you need at least one of these. Now, I do know they offer bundles, which will bundle certain of these cables together with your purchase. But if you buy the base model, it's not going to come with anything but the AC power cable. So just be aware of that when you go to check this out. Okay, just to show you proof of concept, I have solar coming in through the solar MPPT adapter going into one SDC port. The other SDC port is plugged into a 12 volt power source on the floor, and now we're combined charging at 350 watts. So you could charge from the MPPT with multiple panels at 400 and then do another 100 to 200 watts if you plug in 12 or 24 volts through the other SDC ports. But I could actually see a lot of people charging from 12 volts and solar at the same time with this, because that way you don't have to get one of these boxes. You can plug 1 or 2 solar panels in it, throw it on your roof or whatever, and then plug this into your cigarette lighter socket and get power from your vehicle or house batteries as well, and then be able to charge this thing in a reasonable time, because at 350 watts, it's only going to take 3.5 hours to top this thing up from dead. So that's actually pretty darn fast for charging from 12 volts and a couple of solar panels. That's the upside to the DJI 1000. It only has a 1000 watt hour battery, so it doesn't take that long to charge. I also want to mention that DJI 1000 also, you can get an accessory bag to carry it around. It's got some pockets and stuff in it. I'm not going to bother talking about it any more than that. But if you're interested, that's also available for purchase with the power station. So what about simultaneous charging? Can you charge this from both AC and DC at the same time? I have fake solar plugged in. You can see it's drawing 0 amps and it's only charging from AC. I thought maybe if I switched this to slow mode, and it actually charged at 600 watts from AC, that we'd pull something from solar. But look, we're now slow mode, 600 watts. It's still not pulling anything from solar. This does not support simultaneous charging from AC and DC. Now you can charge from 2 DC sources simultaneously with both of these SDC ports, but AC is not in there whatsoever. It's one or the other. So with the 12 volt adapter socket plugged in, it does actually come up and say 13.6 volts. So we're going to assume here that it is regulated, and it does say here 13.6 volts. So let's check and see, can it handle 10 amps? Yep, 10 amps, no problem. Still holding 12.6 volts. That is a success. DJI does claim to offer a 20 millisecond UPS mode on their DJI 1000. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I have a video playing on my computer. I reviewed this computer separately a while back if you're interested in checking it out. I have it powered through the inverter, and I currently have the DJI charging at 600 watts. So we're charging 600 in, 50, 60 going out. And there's a laptop playing a music video. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull the power cord out here to see if the PC stays on, and if it does, then obviously the UPS feature works just fine. So place your bets, 3, 2, 1, and yep, the PC is still going and it's no longer charging. Let's plug it back in and make sure all is kosher. I'll even turn it up on 1200 watts for those of you that complain about that sort of thing. But generally speaking, it doesn't matter what the charge rate is. Either the relay is fast enough or it's not. So there we are, we're charging at 1200 watts and the PC is running just fine. So what if you run into a problem with your power station? It doesn't have an app, so you can't update the firmware. That's not really the case. If you have either a PC or an Apple that has a USB-C output, you can use a USB cable to update the firmware. Now, this is a little tricky. It's mentioned in the user manual what you need to do. You need to download the software. The software is called DJI Assistant 2. Once you put the software in, you have to power this thing off, hold both the AC and power buttons at the same time until it says load, and then you plug your USB cable into the first port. You go through the software. Eventually, it will come up with an icon. I actually do already have the latest version according to this, but it does give me the option to upgrade, so I'm going to go ahead and just click it. So there it goes. It says Tran. I'm assuming that means transfer. I want to just make sure I have the latest greatest before I do anything else. And you just let it run through this process, and then when you're done, you have the latest firmware. This has 2 USB-C outputs that are rated 140 watts each, as long as you use the Power Delivery 3.1 protocol, which means you need to have cables that can support Power Delivery 3.1, which of course I went out and purchased. I also verified this information on their online user manual, which is up to date. I do have these insane USB cables that can do 240 watts. Just so you know that I'm not pulling your leg, it does say 240 watts on it. So these should be more than enough. And I've tested these cables with 140 watt chargers and they charge at 140 watts. Now let's go ahead and see if the DJI 1000 dual 140 watt outputs actually output 140 watts. And for that, I purchased these 2 brand new power banks, which support the Power Delivery 3.1 protocol. Now, just to prove to you that these actually do 140 watts, I'm going to go ahead and charge one to the other. There you have it. It is charging at 140 watts. And this other one is outputting at 137 watts. So showing you proof in advance that the cable and both of these power banks support 140 watt transfer. So let's go ahead and turn the DJI on after the firmware update. It shouldn't be an issue at all getting power out of these outputs into these power banks. And output stops at 60 watts. Just so you know, I'm not pulling your leg. There it is, 60 watts. And that's confirmed on this power bank. So I'm going to go ahead and take the second power bank with the second 240 watt cable, and I'm going to plug that in now. I just showed you that these do 140 watts in and out, and I'm going to plug that into the second USB-C. It stops at 123 watts. What does that mean? These actually are not 140 watt PD 3.1 outputs. They're in fact 60 watt power delivery outputs. I've tried this every which way I can with multiple products, multiple cables. You just saw me do the firmware update. It's got the latest firmware. Looks like DJI didn't test their USB outputs before it left the factory. Hopefully this is something that they could correct in a firmware update. This was a really big selling point for me, was the 140 watt power delivery 3.1. Nothing really has power delivery 3.1 yet. It was actually really difficult to find these power banks that can do both input and output at 140 watts because not too many of them exist yet. And these actually work really great. I really like these things. And I also got, of course, I bought the separate cables just to make sure that I had full support for the power delivery 3.1. Sorry, DJI, you failed this test. Hopefully a firmware update will fix it in the future. Musician's favorite amp interference test is where we determine is the inverter in the DJI clean or dirty. All I have to do is turn the inverter on and we will see. Place your bets. Is it going to be good or bad? Let's find out. Wah, wah. Yep, we do have some buzz. So I know a bunch of you are going to say, well, you got it right next to the power station. I'll move it and show you. It makes no difference. I have it like 2 feet away. Makes no difference. So while the inverter in the DJI is crazy powerful, it's not really going to be that clean for running power amplifiers, ham radio, and stuff like that have an amplifier circuit or speakers. AM radio interference test. Let's see what it sounds like. Definitely got some AM radio noise there on the inverter. All right, next, the EMF test. Let's see how much electromagnetic interference this thing puts off. So you can see we have a baseline of about 4. Power it up, not much of a change at all. Let's go ahead and try the DC first. Turning on the DC doesn't really make any difference. That is good. That means the DC is nice and clean as expected. Now let's try this inverter. 80, 82. That is high. That is definitely on the high side. Usually our inverter is about 60, 50. This one is definitely putting off a lot of interference. So while this inverter is very powerful and it does output power that would be considered clean, like sine wave clean, it does output a lot of noise. So if you're concerned about electromagnetic interference or AM radio interference or interference coming into a power amp of some kind, DJI is going to be problematic for you. So what do I think about the DJI 1000? Now I'm sure some of you have heard the acronym MGTOW, which stands for Men Going Their Own Way. Well, now we have DJIGTOW, because DJI is certainly going their own way with this very unorthodox power station. Let's recap. First, it has no built-in solar controller for solar charging. You have to purchase it separately. They don't use a standard 8mm, XT60, or Anderson connection, but a proprietary SDC connection, which is cool in the fact that it works as both input and output at the same time, but it also means you're trapped into buying DJI branded cables for all the DC inputs and outputs. And this also means there's no 12-volt output unless you, again, buy one of their 12-volt output cables. Next, it's supposed to support power delivery version 3.1, and I was very excited about testing my first power station with 140-watt USB output, but it simply doesn't work. Hopefully, there's a firmware update coming that will fix that. Upsides, it does have a huge inverter for such a small box. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the smallest and lightest LFP power station on the market today with a 2200-watt inverter. And that's 2200 watts running constantly. That's very impressive, and it does work great. However, you won't be using it to power amplifiers or ham radio gear with all that output noise. The biggest and best feature, which I wasn't able to test because my DJI Vata 2 drone is not supported, is the super fast direct DC charging of most DJI drone batteries. Again, you need to purchase a special cable specific to your drone for that to work. So the DJI 1000 is going to be great for anyone that needs an ultra portable 2200 watt inverter or needs to charge their supported DJI drone the fastest way possible in the field. I can see this being a really hot seller for photographers, videographers, or anybody who does a lot of drone flying. For everyone else, the lack of built-in features is really going to be a hard sell. Now, you might want to look into the smaller Power 500 if you're more interested in USB charging, because it does have the built-in pair of bidirectional 100 watt USB power delivery ports, which can be very handy. It also means you can solar charge the Power 500 through USB-C without needing to buy any special cables. All you have to do is find a 100 watt solar panel that supports power delivery charging, and there's plenty of them out there. Product price, starting today, July 8th, the Power 1000 goes on sale for only $599 and the Power 500 will be $379, and this is of course for a limited time. These are actually very compelling prices for the base power stations. And if you figure out per watt values, the 1000 is only 27 cents per watt. That's ridiculous. Or 59 cents per watt hour, which is on the level of the no brand name power stations. Remember, this is a name brand product from a company that's been around a long time with a 5-year warranty backed by a strong support network. Now, of course, these are base prices and they do offer bundle deals that includes the car charging kits, solar kits. You can also add on any additional cables you need for your specific model DJI drone or the carrying bag or any of the other accessories if you like in checkout. So if you're interested in the Power 1000 or Power 500, the link is going to be in the description of this video below. I'm also going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen along with a QR code that you can scan on your mobile device if you're watching me on TV. It'll take you on over to the DJI store page where you can check out the Power 1000 and Power 500. Thanks for watching. If you learned something today, don't forget to give me that thumbs up below. And if you're not a subscriber already, you know what to do. That's it for now. Till next time.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.